Okay, for the purpose of time and out of respect for your busy schedules, we are going to get started this morning. So again, welcome to Formative's Advanced Webinar. We're so happy to have you and grateful that you were able to make the time in your calendar to be with us this morning, wherever you are coming to us from. Let's go ahead and get started. If you have not yet logged into your Formative account, please take a moment and do that. You're going to do that by going to formative.com, clicking log in and entering your credentials or using your single sign-on. So go ahead, take a quick moment to do that now, and then we will get into it. While folks are getting logged in, if they have not yet logged in, I do want to take a quick moment to introduce myself to you guys. My name is Sarah Hall. I am a success manager here at Formative. I spent the last 7 years in the classroom, and I am secondary ELA certified. I've taught pretty much everything within that certification as well. So I am so happy to be joining you this morning and sharing all our advanced formative information with you. And I'm coming to you from Connecticut. Let's take a quick moment to talk about what we are going to be covering in today's session. So we're going to be covering a few things. We're going to be covering content blocks. We're going to be covering teacher pace mode, which we are so excited about. And we're also going to be looking at pushing out delayed feedback to students. Delayed feedback was a highly requested feature, and we are so excited to be able to offer that to you guys. So what are some things that you guys need to know before we get started? Well, this webinar is going to be recorded, so it will be posted later for you in our training center to access at a later date. I say that because we're going to be moving pretty quickly. We're only together for the webinar is going to be about 30 minutes long. And the expectation is not that you guys leave this space as experts in the things that we're going over today, but instead that you're aware of the features that we go over and their functionality. And again, you can reference this at our training center, so you don't have to memorize everything. So I like to point that out. As I said before, we'll be together for about 30 minutes. We might have a few minutes at the end left over for questions if you have them. But as we go, if you do have questions, please go ahead. Feel free to put them in the chat. I have my colleague Katie here with me, and she's going to be working the chat. And she'll be able to answer any questions that you have along the way with regard to any of the features or functions that we go over. And then if there's anything that we don't get a chance to address, with those few moments at the end, we can see if we can get those tackled for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into our advanced webinar. So as I said in the beginning, at this point, folks should be logged into their accounts. If you have not gotten logged in yet, please go ahead and do so, because we're going to jump right into creating a new formative. When you guys get into Formative at this point, you should all land on your dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new formative by clicking the plus new formative button in the upper left-hand corner. What I'm going to encourage you to do, depending on your learning style throughout the course of this webinar, is since you're in your accounts, if you want to go ahead and work along with me and create a formative along with me, that will allow you to really get used to how these features and functions work. If you are the type of learner who would just prefer to sit back and kind of take it all in, that is totally fine too. But like I said, if you're in your account and you want to go ahead and do it along with me, by all means, go ahead and do so. When we start making our new formatives, the first thing I'm going to encourage everybody to do is to go ahead and name that formative. I like to mention this at the beginning of every webinar I do, because inevitably, if we don't, we're all very busy. We'll step away from it at some point. And then we'll end up with like 30 or 40 untitled formatives in our dashboard, which makes it very difficult to access. So the first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is, I can't spell that correctly, is title your formative. I'm simply going to do it with advanced and 1029. You can obviously title your formatives whatever you want. And I want to call your attention to this little arrow in the right-hand corner of the title bar. This will drop down for you to add instructions, okay? So this instruction block is awesome because it always stays pinned to the top of the page. And you can make your instructions as simple or complex as you need them to be for the assignment, but they will always be at the top for your students to reference, even if you're like randomizing questions and things. So I'm going to make my question for today, or my instructions rather, really straightforward. Just going to say, answer the questions. And like I said, you can do whatever you need as it relates to the assignment. But when you go ahead and click this arrow to close those instructions up, this is where we're going to start adding our content and creating our content block for today. So as you guys know, anywhere you see this little blue circle with the plus sign inside, that's how you add your content. The red content on the left here, these are any of the instructional or informational pieces of content that you want to add to your formative. So today, to make our content block, I'm actually going to add a video. So I'm going to click the video button. Again, if you're doing this along with me, I encourage you to, if you want to add a different kind of content, that's fine. But for what I'm going to do, we're going to do the video. You'll notice when I click on that, there's a couple of different ways for us to add a video piece of content. We can record it, we can upload it, or we can just copy a link from like YouTube or something like that. And that's what I'm going to do for the purpose of our work today. You'll see it loads the video and it asks you if you want to add it. You click the add button down here at the bottom, and you've created the content for your first content block. Okay. Really exciting and brand new to Formative is we actually have the ability to use this toggle so that we can add questions to our content block or to our video on a particular timestamp. So let's say there's a particular piece of important information that you want, like at the 1 minute mark, you would just toggle it over and you would add the item at that particular timestamp. Really exciting. I'm not going to necessarily do that for the purpose of what we're working with today. But I do want to encourage you to play around with that a little bit. For what I'm doing today, I want to show you how to add questions to this content block at the 0 minute mark, because what that will do is it'll make sure that as soon as your students see the content, they'll get all of the questions that are associated with it. Okay. So I'm again going to hit add an item at the 0 minute mark, and that makes sure students see information as soon as they see the content block. They don't necessarily have to wait for the video to play to a certain timestamp. And the first question I'm going to add is a multiple choice question. Okay. So maybe my first question is, I want to make sure my students are understanding, like, what is this video about? Okay. And I'm going to give them some answer options. So is the video about percentages? Is it about subtraction? Is it about maybe addition or multiplication? I also want to make sure that I want to give Formative as many opportunities to do the work for me, the heavy lifting. So I'm going to check off my answer so that I can tell Formative, like, I want to create an answer key for this. Okay. I actually want to add another question, so I'm going to go ahead and add another one. This one is going to be a free response question. And you can see it's adding it right to this content block. And I want to understand, how comfortable are my students with percentages? So that's what I put into my question. Last but not least, I'm going to put a short answer question in here. And I want to understand how my students feel about math. So I'm going to put the question there. Okay. Now, I want to show you what this looks like from the student view. So in order to show you that, I'm going to click on the little eyeball in the upper right-hand corner. And here you can see I have my video content. and I have questions 1 through 3. When my students click down on the arrow, you can see that all of the questions I've connected with this particular video, this particular piece of content, are attached to the video. And as I scroll, the video stays pinned to the left and the questions scroll on the right. What's great about that is that now I can make sure that my students, when answering the questions I've created for them, have all of the information they need to be successful in those questions. Before we move on, are there any questions from anyone about creating the content blocks? Are there any questions? Can they play the video before answering the questions? Great questions. Great question. Yes. What will happen if we assign questions at the 0-minute mark? The students will open the particular piece of content. It will show the questions. They can watch it and then answer the questions. All right, let's go ahead and move on to creating a formative in teacher pace mode. In order to do that, though, I want to take a moment to add some additional content to my formative so we actually have something to look at. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to create another content block. But for this one, I'm going to add an enhanced PDF document, image, or Google Doc. For our purpose today, I'm going to pull the presentation we're working with right now out of my Google Drive. So give me one moment to do that. And you can see now that I've selected the slide that I want to drop in, it's converting it. It takes a second, really just depending on the size of the file. I like to say it's thinking. And then it's going to ask you if you want to drop them all in your the formative that you're creating. So I'm going to add all 8 images. What's interesting about this and really neat is that it essentially has taken each slide of my presentation and turned it into its own content block. So now I can add questions to each slide, just as if we were having a dialogue or question in a classroom, right? This is important because teacher-paced mode allows teachers to control the slides or the information, the content that students have in front of them at a given point when in formative, okay? So teacher-paced mode essentially turns formative into more of like a lesson facilitation platform where teachers can go slide by slide or content block by content block, really deliver the instruction, have those like check for understandings in the form of a question, and guide their students through the learning material for that day, right? It takes away the you're on question 1 or 2, and then somebody in the back puts their hands up and asks about question 12 because they have worked ahead, right? Teacher pace mode takes that out. So in order to make our content for our teacher pace mode activity, we're going to add a question here. Maybe the first question I want is a short answer question, and it's going to be, what do you teach? And I'm going to add another question here. Let's see, let's do a free response. I want to know what my student's favorite subject is. And I'm going to move to my next slide, and I'm going to add another question here. It's going to be, I'll do another short answer. And it's maybe I want to know my students' homework habits. And I'm going to ask them, do you do your homework right when you get home? Okay. Really real possibility here. I've uploaded my slides. Maybe I don't want all these slides in my lesson. Maybe I only want those first 3. So what I can do is I can go to the triple dot in the right hand corner of each slide, and I can just delete them. And as a matter of fact, for the purpose of what we're doing today, I'm actually going to do that because I don't want to clutter this up. Okay. So now I've got my content, I've got my questions. Now it's time to assign this formative out in teacher pace mode. In order to do that, I go up to the top here. I'm currently in my edit screen. I'm going to go to my assign screen. In your assign screen, you're going to see a list of all the classes linked to your Formative account. You would simply select the classes you want to assign this out to. For the purpose of what we're doing today, I'm actually going to assign this out to guest students because I want Formative to generate a code so that you guys can log in and into your account and you can see what this looks like from the student side. It's an important note. We actually don't recommend that you guys assign things out to your students as guest students because it's really a one-time use type of login and they won't be able to re-access that information to see, like performance or how they did. So you would obviously just assign it out to your regular classes. But for the purpose of today, like I said, we're going to assign it out to guest students. Then we have the option to toggle on teacher pace mode. All you're going to do is click this toggle here. But what you'll notice when I do that is that I'm going to actually lose control of some of my assigned settings here. And that is totally intentional and meant to function that way. So I want you to see what happens. See, we actually lose some of our optional assigned settings, but that's totally fine. I don't want you to worry about that. And then we're going to hit assign. Okay. What's really awesome about this is you can do all these steps ahead of time and just leave it at these join instructions. So if you're the type of person who gets prepped for the week and you get all your formatives ready to go, this is a great option because teacher pace mode doesn't start until you, the teacher, actually hit the start button. Okay. So if you guys want to go ahead, I would love to have you join me. I'm going to drop this guest code in the chat. If you want to go ahead and put this code into the join code in your own Formative account, I would love to have you join me so that you can see what this looks like on the student side. So go ahead and do that now. While you're doing that, I'm actually going to split my screen so that I can show you a couple of things happening here. Okay, I'm going to hide the names. So I see we have a couple people joining us. The more, the merrier. Don't worry, this is not going to be high stakes. I am not going to judge you. Wrong answers, silly answers are encouraged. So if we could get a few more people to join us, again, that code is in the chat. I'll give folks a few more seconds to get the join code in there. Thank you to the 2 that are joining us. And then we will get started in the actual facilitation of the teacher pace mode lesson. Okay. As we go through this, if you folks want to join us, I encourage you to do so. But for the purpose of time, I want to show you a little bit more about how this actually works. So over here, I have the teacher view of what teacher pace mode looks like. Over here, I have our view responses tab. And for those of you that have joined us, in the actual assignment, you're going to see what a student would see in the teacher pace mode setup. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm the teacher. I want to start my lesson. I hit start. You get a little countdown, and then the lesson shows up. But to my folks out there in webinar world, all you're going to see right now are the instructions. Okay. As the student, you do not have control to move throughout this Formative. Okay. Until I, the teacher, hit the next button. So I'm going to hit next. And now you'll see my students have access to the video as well as the questions. I have the way my screen is, it would be tagged to the left. Let me see, there you go. You have the videos on the left and the questions are on the right. And yep, you can go ahead. I see some more folks are joining us. That's awesome. And you can start answering the questions. One of the things I want to point out is you can see some people have answered question 1, question 2. We have some folks moving on to question 3, but you cannot go further than that. Okay, because I have not yet given you that option for pacing purposes. Awesome. Thank you to all the participants out there. When I'm ready to have you move on, all I do as the teacher is I hit next. I'm going to do that now. To those of you that are doing this on your own, if you are not yet finished with these questions, not to worry. I will give you the option to go back later. So I'm going to hit next. You can see now, as the student, you have the next content block and the next set of questions, okay? You can clearly see up here where students are at a given point. You can see this block in blue means they are on this second content block with questions 4 and 5. But you can see the first content block had questions 1, 2, and 3. And you can see the next one only has question 1, okay? What I also want to point out is at any point, I can pause this, which limits what students can do at any point during the lesson. I can also unpause it when I'm ready to get back into it and just get students right back into the content, okay? When I'm ready to move on to my next piece of content, I hit next, and then it populates for my students in their Formative account. Now, the thing that I want to point out that is really powerful about Teacher Pace mode is I've now, if I'm using this as my facilitation platform, and these content blocks contained all of the information and content that I wanted my students to get out of the lesson. And let's say I had, 3 or 4 more questions at the end that were really designed to be like an independent practice. Once I've delivered my lesson, I can go up here to the upper right-hand corner where it says end session, click the drop down, and I can switch it back to student paced. For those of you doing this on your own, you will see that you now have the flexibility to move throughout the formative and either finish up questions you did not get a chance to finish while I was in Teacher Pace mode, or if I had additional questions added to the end as more of like an independent practice, you could then work through those questions as well, okay? So I highly encourage you guys, like in your practice, in your classrooms, to play around with this, because I really do think that the functionality and the power in this goes far beyond like the simple example that I've been giving you here today. We're really excited about it. So play with it, see how it works best for you. And we're really excited to hear how you do with it. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part, which is giving delayed feedback. So let me go ahead and close this out. Open it back up for you. Okay, so delayed feedback. This was something that came very highly requested from our teachers. And since you guys are the ones out there, you guys are the ones using our platform, we want to know what are the features and functions that are going to make your life easier. And this was one that came in frequently. So let's take a look at giving delayed feedback. So if we look at an individual question, okay? Delayed feedback is exactly what it is, right? It's giving feedback to students, but not necessarily doing it in the moment that they are engaging with the content. It's doing it after the fact, after the assignment has been closed, okay? There's a number of reasons that somebody might want to do that. Maybe it's for test integrity purposes, right? Like you don't want to be acknowledging correct answers and giving, feedback to students in the moment. Maybe it's, you just don't want it to be distracting to students, right? So whatever the case may be, delayed feedback is a great option for you. So if I'm looking at a specific question and I see all these correct answers, maybe I want to acknowledge that these folks got the right answer. So I'm going to click them all and I want to give them all feedback. You'll see in the feedback box down here, I have the option to do it now or when the assignment is closed. I'm going to opt to do it when the assignment is closed. And there are specific assign settings that you need to have enabled to give delayed feedback. And basically, this box is just going to pop up and let you know. This particular one says students might not be able to open this assignment to read your feedback. until after it's closed. So that's just like Formative saying like, here's your FYI about that. Maybe my feedback is as simple as saying, nice job. Okay. I'm going to hit send. Okay. And the feedback message, it says has been sent. However, when I click on the individual student, you're going to see a little note here. It says, yes, the feedback has been sent, but the student has not received it. It is only visible with return scores. So how do I do that? How do I return scores? How do I close the assignment? Well, there's a number of ways that I can do that. So first, we can go back to our totals page. Anywhere you see this little lightning bolt, that's going to give you the ability to close the assignment. Drop down, you hit close, you can do it there. You can also do it from your assign settings. So I click on the assign settings and I click in and I have the option to toggle here to close it down. Okay. The last place that you can do it to close the assignment is from your dashboard. So if you go to your dashboard, you can hit the little lightning bolt and you can adjust your settings to closed. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close that assignment. I'm going to go ahead back into view my responses. And when I can click into my individual responses, you're going to see that the feedback has now been sent. Okay. It is giving me that message about my assign settings. So that would be my cue to go back and check them. But the key here is that students are not getting the note to the feedback immediately when they're working, but instead when the assignment is closed. Again, we are really excited about this. I think this is, as I stated before, this was a heavily requested feature. So to be able to offer this to our teachers, we're very excited. Okay. So before we transition out, we are sort of getting to the end of our time together today. I want to show you how to access additional resources, things that you might need while you're working in Formative. You guys already know how to access our training center. That is how you found us today. And the training center has a ton of information available to you at your fingertips with regard to training resources. But also we have, when you're logged into your Formative account in the upper right-hand corner, we have the little bubble here with the question mark in it. And that gives you access to our help center. Our help center has a ton of articles with every like help type resource you could imagine. Really, really great. It's based on like a keyword search. So you can access our help center. We have our community center, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a community of teachers just like you, supporting each other, asking questions, really awesome. Video tutorials, a place to request features. That's how we get our features, guys. We can't guarantee that every feature will be added, but definitely they will be looked at. And the more they are requested, the more likely they are to be part of our platform. And then also a place to contact our Formative support. With that said, that is the conclusion of our time together. You'll see Katie has posted a link to a survey to receive your certificate for this webinar in the chat. Go ahead and click on that, fill it out so that you can get your certificate. I really want to thank you for spending the time with me today. I know as teachers, your time is so valuable. You can go ahead and transition out. It was so nice to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jill. It was wonderful having you guys here. Have a wonderful day and a lovely weekend. See you guys. Bye-bye.